马力欧陪你喝一杯。
One, two, one, two, three.
大家好，这里是马力欧陪你喝一杯，我是马力欧。那我们今天非常高兴呢，邀请到厉害知名的调酒师，而且是国际级的大师，来到我们这边做访谈。那我们一起来欢迎 Ran。
你好。
我们今天会稍微不太一样一点，就是我们会用中文做访谈，但是可能Ran 需要稍微一点翻译。那翻译的人是 Steven。首先第一个就是来到台湾这几天哦，或者要继续待下去这几个礼拜，对台湾的酒吧文化的现在印象是什么？对台湾的 bar 的印象是什么
So I never really had a first impression of Taipei, Taiwan bartending scene because this is obviously my first time here, but I've been very impressed with the cocktail scene here. You know, some really talented people. I got to go to Placebo, which was the bar that's actually next to the place I'm staying, and I didn't even realize there was a cocktail bar there until last night. You know, then I was able to visit Aki and Indulge last night. And we went to I believe Wu Taipei, and you know, seeing the dynamic of speakeasy style from the decor to the execution, you know, it's so impressive. You know, obviously, you know, being a third-tier cocktail, you know, city is, you know, there's a lot of challenges that actually I've noticed with the importing, with finding the right produce, with outsourcing. You know, there's so many challenges involved, but it's been really impressive.
Sure. Ran 刚刚讲的还蛮长一段的，所以我大概简单翻译一下。所以这次是他第一次来到台湾。那因为他以前没有来到台湾，所以他也是第一次看到我们台湾的这个 cocktail scene 发展的这么的蓬勃。像前几天他有去，像他刚刚提到 Placebo， 或是乌菜配，或是这 Aki 的 Indulge， 对，那他其实看到台湾的这个 cocktails 用了也很多当地的元素，然后也很多国外的元素都进来，他觉得他非常的 impressed，他对看到这个台湾的 cocktail scene 就是还蛮惊讶的。
OK， 那你觉得对于台湾的这个酒吧文化来讲，你有可能讲出一个它的让你 impressive 的一个地方吗？就是它特色最特别的地方会是什么呢？
The reason why, obviously, you know, choosing Taipei as one of my first stops in Asia, it was obviously not just, you know, finding myself a brand to pair myself with, but, you know, working with a loop, working with Core. A lot of their, you know, ethos has really resonated with me about actually, you know, not just the cocktail, but actually showing the guests a good time. You know, there's so much more that goes into just the cocktail when, you know, running a bar, running a nightlife venture, or anything like that. There's so many elements, and it really resonated with me when obviously I did my research on the Loop, Core, and the whole umbrella brand. You know, and as far as, you know,
所以他Ran 刚刚提到的就是他什么原因为什么会选来台北这个地方？那刚开始当然是跟我们稍微有认识的关系，有做联络。然后就稍微看了一下我们的 loop 下面有，比如说 Omni 跟 Core。那以 Core 来讲的话，也是一个就是台北算是一个最新的概念的酒吧。那看了之后也发现说，我们真的是很注重在这个酒吧的上面，然后调酒的这些概念他非常喜欢，所以他也选择来台北帮我们做这个有点像文化交流的这种东西。对，
那你觉得就那个观察来讲，就是台湾跟美国的酒吧文化有什么不一样的地方？就是以亚洲或者说跟亚洲其他地方比起来。
Do you see any key differences between the bars in Taiwan and the U.S.?
So I think there are so many more similarities and key differences. Every market I visit, you know, you have your different styles of bar. You have your dive bars, your cocktail bars, you know, your nightclubs, all the way to your beer bars. You know, these are all elements that makes a certain genre of bars unique, and I was able to find all of them here. I was actually, you know, after I left Indulge, Aki and the whole crew, they took me to some dive bar. I forgot the name of it, but the gentleman has been there for 22 years. He's a bartender at 3 a.m. They open till 6 a.m. He's cooking the food back there. He is making the drinks. Like, he's doing everything. It was just like, I felt like I was in someone's living room. You know, it was so inviting. It was so warm. And you know, I think there are a lot of differences, but at the same time, you know, what makes us all the same is because we just all want to have a good time. You know.
Sure. 所以 Ran 刚刚讲到说，他其实因为在美国那边看了非常多不一样的 bar， 可是他发现，当他来到台湾的时候，他也看到非常相似的东西。那相似的东西上面可能不是一个，譬如说 酒吧的形式或是怎么样，那反而是一个人的气氛。譬如说，他昨天到一个那种比较巷弄里面，英文是 dive bar， 就有点像是邻居下面的酒吧的感觉。那他进去之后也发现里面的这个调酒师在那边做酒，然后他同时也在厨房里面很努力的做这个食物给大家吃，所以当然是有不一样的地方啊。可是他感觉很强烈的是，不管这些人在台湾或者在国外，都是想要来到这个酒吧跟大家聊天，然后 have a good time。
就是刚刚有提到 Indulge， 然后阿 K， 然后有提到窝台北，然后这些 bar， 就是在不去造访不同城市的时候，是怎么样跟这些不同的 bartender 去做交流呢？就是 bartender 之间的交流的方式是什么
？So when you went to, for example, Taipei or Indulge, Aki's bar, how do you communicate with the bartenders in different countries?
Well, good thing for me is I also speak Chinese, just not very good Chinese. But, end of the day, too, it's, we all speak the same language of, once again, reading the menu, having a good time, and more importantly, trusting the bartender to guide you through the experience. A lot of times when I go to bars, my first time, or when I'm in good hands, I'm in good friends, I'm like, you know what, like, I would love to taste whatever you're making. Sure. It's not about what I want to drink, it's about what they want to make, because what they make for me or what they make for any guest is the expression of the area, the culture.
所以 Ran 他说他蛮幸运的，因为他其实会讲一点点中文，所以他跟 bartender 稍微沟通的上面还 OK。然后他觉得说他去，譬如说台湾很多个 bar 嘛，那他去跟不一样 bartender 沟通的重点其实不是在语言上面，比较是艺术，或是他为你这一个特别的客人可以做出什么样不一样的调酒。他说人的因素在酒吧上面还是最重要的 ，bartender。跟你认识这个客人不一定是用语言，可能是跟你上面肢体语言，或是看到你喜欢什么样的不一样的材料，然后他为你这个客人亲自设计一个为你而做的东西。所以在跟 bartender 沟通上面，不是譬如说看 menu 还是怎么样，其实是人与人上面的沟通是最重要的。
你会有固定点的第一杯酒吗？
Do you have a consistent first drink that you drink at the bar?
So I normally so when I go to a bar, obviously, couple things I look for: how busy the bar is, how many bartenders are on staff, because I'm not going to order a fancy cocktail when there's like 50 people waiting to get drinks, because I'm a bartender, I've been there. The last thing I want to do is make their jobs harder. So the first drink is usually always a beer and a shot if they're really busy. A lot of times I like to start off with a daiquiri or like a Negroni, something simple, because I need to understand the element of the bar. I'm not going to go to beer bar and order a fancy cocktail. I'm not going to go dive bar and order, like a fancy cocktail. It's just, you need to know the genre you're at. So I think it's more of a situation protocol where, you need to analyze the situation, but more importantly, the menu they put in front of you is what they are proud of. That's what the menu is. So, I mean, you need to pay respect to the house too, and obviously get something off the menu.
Right. 所以 Ran 他刚刚说他是站在比较一个 bartender 角色想，因为他自己也经历过很多这种很忙的时候，所以他进去酒吧，他点的第一杯酒是不太一定的。例如说，如果一间酒吧是非常忙的话，比如说有50个人已经在等酒了，那他可能就点一杯啤酒加一个 shot。OK。可是如果是比较气氛比较柔和一点，然后可以好好的享受这杯酒的话，可能是点一杯 daiquiri，或是
Negroni， simple，
对，所以他其实是会看这种酒吧是什么形态的酒吧，然后忙碌是多忙碌来决定他点的酒。
OK， 你有这么多创意的调酒，就是这些 idea 是怎么来的？
Where do your inspirations come from for your creative cocktails?
So it's kind of funny. I've been to probably about 30 countries in the past 3 years, just traveling, eating, drinking. Obviously, you can tell by my waistline. I'm a really good eater, so my inspiration comes for travel. Like I said, going to the local restaurants, going where the locals are, getting inspired by art, getting inspired by the weather, by the fruits, the produce that's available. It reflects a lot on my inspiration. So at my bar, we have the Baldwin Sons Trading Company. It's pretty much every element of the menu is inspired by, let's say, India, China, or there's always a nod that influences that heritage, but more importantly, the flavors and the techniques that you find there.
Ran 他刚刚提到说，他做 cocktail 的 inspirations， 他的灵感都是来自于他去 travel。他说他大概已经 travel 30个国家了，然后他去每个国家的时候呢，都会去特别注意他当地的一些农产是什么，它的特色 料理的 flavor 是什么。所以它所有的 cocktail 呢，其实都有包含，譬如说如果要去中国 travel 的话，就是有中国的元素；去印度的话，就是有印度的元素。
你刚刚有提到天气，你有任何调酒是来自于天气吗？You can mention the weather, inspired by the weather.
Yeah. So for example, here it's really, really humid, really humid.
Yeah.
So obviously, if I was to, let's say, open up a bar here or something, because it's so humid, I'm not going to be served. Well, besides, it's actually a cultural thing where people do drink hot tea or hot stuff in Asia to cool you down. So I'm still learning that a little bit, because I'm always like, let me get a really cold bottle of water. But like for example, if it's a really cold culture like in Iceland or something, the drinks I'm gonna have are gonna be more heavier base, more stirred base, like as in a Manhattan old fashioned. Just to name a couple of things, I'm not gonna be making pina coladas in Iceland. You know what I mean? But versus here, it's such a tropical climate. You know what I mean? Like you have so many fresh fruits. The weather is so humid, it's so hot. Where sometimes you just want to transfer them and aid that need for them to kind of cool down a little bit.
Ran 刚提到的是东方跟西方文化的差别，因为在我们东方文化里面，可能会觉得说天气热的时候来杯热茶，可以让你身体有点cool down一点，比较冷却一点。可是像他们在西方的话，就是当然是很热的天气就马上来一杯冰的调酒。所以他说在这一方面，他也在上面慢慢的研究说我们东方的文化。那他刚刚提到说会用气候的这个不一样的原因来调酒，就是大概是这种概念。
现在来到台湾这几天，有没有发现台湾的哪些食材是比较特别的，然后可以加入到调酒里面？
Have you found any special ingredients in Taiwan?
So I mean, I was lucky enough to go to the fruit market. So it's actually kind of funny because the fruit market we went to, a lot of people didn't want us to touch the produce, didn't want us to taste the produce, didn't want us to smell it. And where I come from, it's like you need to actually fully indulge into all your senses to actually understand a product. So I found, bitter melon, it's definitely very popular here. In the process of making, hopefully, a decent bitter melon bitters, that represents Taipei well. I went tea tasting, did the whole aromatics of different infusion rates of teas, to even, tasting the local junk food. You can find inspiration everywhere. So, there's a cocktail we're currently working right now that has purple rice syrup, and there's that big culture of, once again, food to drinks to the whole encompass of consuming.
所以 Ran 前几天其实有去我们滨江市场整个绕过一次，然后找到一个比较特别，就是我们的苦瓜。对，然后其实就是这几天你有在做苦瓜的这个做成苦精，对，然后发现苦瓜其实是还蛮甜的对，这是蛮特别的。然后另外一个他有去我们的应该是猫空吧，他们去喝茶。
OK，
他有试各种不一样的茶。
OK，
那台湾当然也是对茶这方面非常专精，非常有名。他试很多不一样的茶，然后也把不一样茶的元素融合在我们调酒里面。对，然后甚至他说，例如说我们的 street food， 也就是我们的夜市小吃，夜市小吃他也吃过了一遍，试了蛮多蛮特别的东西。那在日后他也会把这些元素都结合在他的新的调酒里面。
OK， 我们之前就通常会有一些餐酒的搭配，然后但是它基本上都是葡萄酒为主哦。那我现在当然会开始有一些尝试是以 cocktail 去做 pairing 这样子，有没有做过一些这样子的 pairing 的尝试
？Traditionally, there's only, for example, for food pairings, there's only with wine or fancy drinks, but there's a new trend starting with pairing with cocktails, right? So have you done any food pairing with cocktails?
So obviously at my bar, we're a restaurant first and foremost, you know what I mean? We're a Sichuan restaurant in America, and there's not really a lot of food pairing in Chinese restaurants in America, I'll tell you that, But, we're definitely one of the bars that focuses a lot on food pairing, about flavors, about, textures, on not just that, but on temperature, on flavor, on pairing that like branch ingredient that's in the dish that you can also associate in the drink. So for example, one of my favorite drinks we have at our restaurant, it's called Domo Arigato. It's very Japanese inspired, but it has mezcal, our house-made gingerbread, lime, and sesame oil we actually add to it. And there's that bridge of sesame oil that is in a lot of the Sichuan cooking, in all of the Chinese cooking, where it's kind of that symbolic blend that really lingers everything in with the smokiness, you know. But I think food pairing with cocktails has been done for a while, but no one really noticed it till now because everyone's become more conscious to cocktails. We've been pairing things, not even just, you know, my bar, like people not knowing they're pairing things are pairing things, you know.
他刚提到说，例如说他在美国自己的酒吧里面，他其实是在一个四川的那个面食餐厅里面，他酒吧蛮特别，就在这个餐厅里面，所以他其实在这个食物与 cocktail 的 pairing， 他其实已经有做一段的时间了。可能是因为跟这 cocktail culture 最近也才刚慢慢蓬勃发展起来，所以其实很久以前大家在吃饭的时候跟配饮料的时候，其实都已经在做 pairing， 只是大家没有去注意这件事情。没有像譬如说配红酒的时候，大家会特别看这是红酒什么。可是其实例如在他餐厅里面，他有一杯酒叫做 Domo Arigato， 它是一个蛮日本的名字了。可是它里面的这个 cocktail 用的材料呢，其实跟四川的这个面食有非常类似的这个口味存在。这是一个举例，在美国现在 cocktail 跟食物已经非常是一个蓬勃发展，可以做 pairing 的东西。
可以多谈一下刚刚那杯酒吗？我们想了解一下那杯酒里面。
So well, not just besides that. So you know, going back with food pairing and stuff, like in India, right? So India, the culture there, they drink lassi when it's really hot or to cool their palate, right? So I mean, not just besides that drink, we have a drink called the Crown Jewel that is inspired by a mango lassi, except we were at Raza Hunud. You know, obviously, we add citrus to there to kind of cool off the texture. Obviously, with the Domo Arigato, with the mezcal, which is it's going to be really smoky. It's from a agave plant. It's not quite tequila, but you know, it does have all these harmonious toasty notes that really pair well with sesame and ginger, which is all, you know, indigenous to China. You know, we've have other cocktails where, you know, we're putting Pangdang in a Queen's Park Swizzle, which pretty much is just a mojito. Let's just say elevated mojito, where you're bringing in Thai element to kind of add the tannins of the pandan to kind of clear your palate when you eat something spicy as well. Sorry to lay all this.
所以他刚刚大概讲到刚刚那杯酒叫做 Domo Arigato， 它的原料其实是用墨西哥很类似龙舌兰的这个酒，它原料也是用龙舌兰，可是它没有像龙舌兰那么的强烈，它反而比较多这种草药上面，然后有不一样的这种花香味，所以他就把这些元素都结合在他的这个酒里面。他刚刚也提到说，他有结合泰国的元素啊，有印度的元素啊。
So 怎么样开始去把那个餐厅然后变成一个 bar?
How did you open the bar within the restaurant? Did you open the restaurant first, then you add onto the bar?
So Sichuan Garden at the Baldwin. It's pretty much at the Baldwin Mansion. It's a historic mansion, a colonial mansion, built in 1661. So it was a property that my father took. I believe in 2006 when he bought the space. So it was a Chinese restaurant pretty much, you know, but it had so much potential to be something more. I mean, a beautiful colonial yellow mansion in the suburbs of Boston. So pretty much when I graduated in 2009, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do. It was during the economy bubble where it was really hard to find a job. So what else was I going to do besides, you know, kind of take over my dad's program? I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any training in cocktails, but, you know, fast forward till 2017, I'm sitting here with you guys talking about cocktails, right? I must have done something right, so.
所以他刚刚提到说他在波士顿的这个 bar， 它本来是一个很有历史性的一个 mansion 这种豪宅。这栋建筑物其实是在1661年，所以已经有好几百年的历史了。那他爸爸很幸运的在2006年的时候可以买下这个很古老的这个建筑物。那 Ran 其实他本来毕业时他也对调酒就是其实也没有什么概念的，可是在他毕业了之后呢，他就开始对这方面感到非常多的兴趣。然后他说，在这几年中，一直到2017年，他现在可以跟我们坐在一起，对他自己也蛮 surprised 的。Can you talk a little more about how did you combine the restaurant and the cocktail bar together?
Yeah, so I've always loved cocktails. It's definitely been something that's on the forefront of at least my mind because, I mean, I don't want to say I'm a really good drinker, but I'm a really good drinker. And, you know, I had my first whiskey sour with actually fresh lemon juice. Being in college, you know, in 2005 to 2009 was definitely, you know, I was drinking beer, like whiskey sour mix, all that stuff. And I didn't have my first, like, whiskey smash or whiskey sour till I was, like, senior year of college, where suddenly I'm like, whoa, why does this drink taste so good? I've always been used to sour mix stuff. It was like, well, we use fresh lemon juice in it for you. And my conception of what a drink was just that. It wasn't that you can actually make it fresh, you can actually make it gourmet, or you can actually make it into a craft. And, you know, the term craft definitely gets thrown around a lot in cocktails and food, but end of the day, it's like just like fine cooking, you know. I've been to all the fanciest restaurants, but I've also been to all the local restaurants that just use really, really good ingredients. It makes that meal or that drink more memorable. So how I got into cocktails was realistically, I was exposed to good cocktails that were not the fanciest cocktails in the world, but they're just made with really fresh ingredients, and that kind of won me over, and that got me thinking about, wow, like there's a new world out there that hasn't been tapped yet.
刚刚提到说，我的问题是你怎么把这个餐厅跟酒吧合在一起的？那他说，其实他自己本身就是很爱吃东西的。那其实他对 cocktail 这方面是一直到大学4年级的时候才开始有慢慢接触。当他开始接触 cocktail 的时候，他就碰到这些很厉害的 bartender 帮他做了很特别的东西，所以他一喝了之后就马上有很多的这个感触，他就对这非常有兴趣。那加上他的 cocktail 里面跟他们这个他做的四川的面。这个东西，它其实很多元素是类似的。现在就是 gourmet 跟这个 cocktail scene 有点结合在一起，就是厨师厨艺跟 cocktail 做 cocktail 的这个艺术呢，其实是慢慢融合在一起了。所以他也因为这样子，就把这个餐厅与酒吧的部分结合在一起。
OK， 但是你怎么开始当一个调酒师 ？How do you start to be a bartender?
I never realized I was a bartender, honestly, because, you know, so pretty much this is what happened. 2009, after I graduated, obviously I was telling you guys earlier that it was really hard to find a job, right? It's the economy that was kind of sinking, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I went to school for restaurant management and hotel management, so I already had a hospitality degree. Kind of implementing that into what professional field, I didn't know what I was going to do. So obviously my dad bought the Baldwin Mansion in Woburn, and we had a bar there, but it could have been so much better. You know, it was your typical Chinese restaurant bar where they're doing like Mai Tai, scorpion bowls, you know, what Americans think of what Chinese drinks really are, but there's really no defining moment of Chinese drinks. So it got to the point where we were at an identity crisis where we could either follow the path and do what every other Chinese restaurant is. Have you guys been to America, been to any Chinese restaurants? Yeah. So I'm not sure if there's General Gao's here or Chicken Fingers, but like what people think of the quality of Chinese food and the quality of Chinese cocktails are really different from what our perceptions are. I mean, then again, you know, you could say that about any food and cuisine and culture. So I wanted to do something different that wasn't getting duplicated by every single restaurant surrounding me, you know. So, like I said, we slowly started changing, using fresh juice instead of sour mix. One step led to another to, wow, we were actually trying to source the best spirits to make for our cocktails, to the point where we're now actually making and producing not just, you know, syrups, but, you know, bitters. And it just kept going on and on and on until I'm like, shit, like, I said that word again. It got me to the point where I'm like, oh, man, like, we're really into this now. Like, you know, we can control all variables of a cocktail to make sure that's the best cocktail the guest can get. So it kind of just grew into me liking drinks, to me slowly falling in love with it, to me becoming obsessed with it.
Ran 刚刚说他其实怎么成为一个 bartender 的呢？那他在2009年毕业，那刚好2009年那个时候就是一个国际的金融危机嘛，大家应该记得。所以他毕业之后工作当时非常难找。所以他就慢慢的 explore 了一阵子，他就自己慢慢的去探索。那刚好他爸爸也是在2006年买下刚刚提到的这个 Baldwin Mansion。那他刚开始的时候呢，就是美国人对东方人的这个传统概念，就例如说，譬如说他们去中国餐厅就可能吃一些什么空泡 chicken、orange chicken。那种橘子口味的鸡，它其实不是传统的中国食物，是美国人自己发明。所以呢，他有看到这个美国人怎么会吃这种这么不传统的中国东西呢？那也因为这个原因，他就慢慢把调酒这一部分慢慢改变。他以前可能都是用一些那种现成超市买得到的这种原料果汁去做，他发现不对，其实这个调酒应该是要展现它最原始的味道，所以他就开始用新鲜的水果去开始做这些原料啊。然后跟食物上面非常类似，就是想要把食物与调酒的部分呈现为最原始、最这个的味道，这样子。
OK， 你要怎么样定义一个好的调酒师？就是所谓一个好的调酒师是什么样子
How do you define a good bartender? What do you think a good bartender's traits should be?
I think one of my main philosophies, well, I have a ton of philosophies. One of my main philosophies that we implement on all training at our bar is we're here to serve guests, not cocktails. You know, in the world of bartending, in the world of star tenders, which is a star bartender, in the world of mixologists, whatever you want to call it. End of the day, we're just making drinks. It's not rocket science, you know, so makes a great bartender for me is first identifying your guest needs. Like, I don't care if a guest that's on my bar, they want the fanciest, prettiest cocktail with dry ice, or they want a Red Bull vodka, or they want a glass of wine or a beer. You know, it's about how you serve it to the guests and you make them feel welcome, and you don't alienate them because they're not ordering something fancy, you know what I mean? But not just that, but it's about hospitality. You know, how do you retain guests? How do you understand the guest needs before they even ask for it? You know what I mean? How do you tell signs when, oh no, they dropped their napkin, when you have one ready for them as soon as they pick it up? You know what I mean? To even understanding, hey, they have friends coming, making sure, you know, you save enough seats for them to, oh, I hear you guys like cocktails, let me recommend you this other bar, where, and you actually call the bar ahead, hey, I'm blah, blah, blah from here, I would love to send some guests your way because they really enjoy cocktails. They had these drinks here, these are their palates. You know, I'd love for you to take care of them. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, steps of service where you're going beyond what a bartender is. That's why I think amazing hostess and amazing industry, you know, hospitality influencer is. So, end of the day, we're all bartenders, you know. Like, it's becoming a point where everyone's like, oh my God, you make great drinks, you make pretty drinks. But end of the day, I'm just looking at myself like, you know what? Like, thank you so much. But, you know, I'm just here to make people happy, you know.
Ran 他刚刚提到说他怎么样去看一个 bartender， 怎么看他们是不是一个好的 bartender 呢？他的哲学是在服务这一块。像刚刚提到说 bartender 最重要的其实就是照顾客人，了解你的客人。当一个客人走进你的酒吧的时候，他不管是点一个很简单的 Red Bull vodka， 还是点一个非常 fancy、非常夸张的一个 cocktail， 有干冰这样子飘出来都没关系。重点是你怎么样让这个客人觉得有回到家的感觉。例如说，他有朋友要过来的话，你是不是要帮他留几个位置在隔壁？所以在这个服务上面，他是其实非常重视的。那另外一点，他也提到说，其实做这个 cocktail 调酒师，现在被这个媒体或是在大家心目中可能是一个像明星厨师一样，还是明星调酒师的这种形象一样。可是对他来讲呢，他非常的谦虚。像大家看到他去酒吧跟他点，可能就觉得说，哇，你做的 cocktail 好棒哦，怎么样？他其实跟客人都会说，我其实只是在这里可以服务客人，让大家开心而已。
其实我去喝过很多调酒啦，就是我在台湾也去过很多酒吧，有些时候甚至会有一些，我有去一个酒吧，然后当然他可能是开玩笑的，就是我一开始我想说先来个啤酒，然后他就有一种很受伤的感觉，他觉得你来到这么好的 bar， 你怎么可以跟我点啤酒这样？你应该要点一个很 fancy 的调酒这样子。所以可能回应到刚刚那个问题，就是好像当下其实我是觉得收获的，我只想要先来一杯啤酒那种感觉。那但是那个 bartender 让我觉得好像我做错了什么事情那种感觉。
那个不是个好的 feeling。
Yeah.
You know, end of the day， 如果你不想他们买啤酒，为什么扣到 menu 上面 ？You know, it's like, you know, end of the day。I think that I would like to see less ego and more hospitality, but not just that, but like show guests a good time. You know, that's what our job is here. We are the host.
Yeah.
刚 Mario 跟 Ran 提到，就是 Mario 说他有去酒吧里面点个啤酒嘛，那台湾的调酒师可能就是 Ran 说可能比较有 ego 一点，然后可能点了啤酒，所以他不是。bartender 看到不是很开心，可是对 Ran 这里来讲的话 ，Ran 是比较觉得说 bartender 就是不要有那么多 ego， 当然把 focus 放在服务客人上面。我觉得这也是有点东西文化的这个差别
，OK，
就在这里。
其实他是一个国外调酒师，
是。但
现在有一些酒吧其实台湾也很多，就是它是没有 menu 的。你怎么看这样子一个 bar 呢？是好还是不好呢？
I think bars without menus, so where I come from, we call that bartender's choice, right? I think it's really awesome, but needs to be a niche market that goes there that knows what to explain. So, for example, I come to your bar or you come to my bar, first thing I do is, how's it going? Is this your first time here? Oh, awesome. Well, welcome. Are you from the area? you have that conversation with them. Then you ask them, so what do you normally like to drink? You want something refreshing? You want something, more stirred like a Manhattan? Or, you want something non-alcoholic? All right, perfect. Do you have any allergies? It's that step of service that makes it rhetorical where guests and bartenders understand that. So my theory behind this is you're building a thread. You're gaining information on what the guest wants, what their palate is. So what this means is then cocktail 1 that you make them, cocktail 2, cocktail 3, based on what they tell you, you already know where you're going to make them for the next 3-4 drinks. You know what I mean? I think that's a great approach to bars, but the issue is when you're in a market like maybe Taipei or, even in any other markets in Asia or even in the U.S., there's certain smaller markets where there's not enough training to do that, where you can actually identify that. There's not enough skilled bartenders where you can retain that at a constant level where, I'll go to a bar and do that, but I'll only go to that bar certain nights if, let's say, bartender X is making it because he makes the best drinks. You know what I mean? But then again, it's worked for a lot of bars. One of my favorite bars is Drink in Boston. I'm friends with all of them, and they don't have a drink menu there. So, obviously every time I go there, like, as soon as I go there, they have a beer and a shot waiting for me. And then they're like, I don't even say anything. They just here's a pineapple daiquiri, or here's, you know what I mean? It's because, well, actually, let me talk about another thing real quick. The guests that come to my bar or the guests that go to these bars that want to have that interaction, they don't always know what they want. They can tell you, I don't want something sweet. But our version of sweet versus what the guest version of sweet is totally different. You know what I mean? So how do you define the bartender's knowledge, but not just that, the guest knowledge on how to explain that dialogue on what they want? Like, I could sit here and talk to people about, the different regions of Scotch in Scotland. I can sit here and talk about the bitter or the Brix levels of Amaro or bitters or different styles of vermouth or the fermentation process of, blah, blah, blah. But in the day, that's just blah, blah, blah to guests. They don't know what the hell you're talking about. So how do we simplify it and how do we bring it back where they understand us so we can better serve them? Sorry to leave you with that long paragraph.
好，我大概简短的这个总结一下，主题是说他现在无酒单的酒吧现在非常流行嘛，然后 Ran 怎么看这个方式的酒吧？他说他非常的喜欢，也是一个趋势啦。那对他来讲的话，这种酒吧其实是他最喜欢的酒吧。他在美国波士顿那边也有一个最喜欢的酒吧。他每次进去的时候，这个 bartender 就已经知道要给他一瓶啤酒、一瓶 shot， 然后下几杯是什么，那些人都知道了。可是在例如说台北或是亚洲这些地方好了，他觉得我们朝这个方向发展的重点会是怎么样去服务客人。重点是 bartender 有没有办法跟客人沟通到，例如说刚刚提到说，客人说他不要太甜的，那 bartender 有没有办法理解到他不要太甜的这个程度是多少呢？因为他的甜跟你的甜可能是不一样的，所以这个挑战会是说 bartender 跟客人上面的沟通有没有办法到客人一进来就是知道说他点第一杯就知道下一杯要点什么酒，继续做有什么样的酒给他。我觉得这是一个他刚提到最重要的地方。
那你自己的酒吧里面有menu 吗？
我们有。
OK，
我们酒吧也有2个不一样的 menu。我们第一楼酒吧是 The Baldwin Bar， 是很多 Tiki inspired， 因为 Tiki 跟 Chinese food is so good, like spicy, salty, sweet, cold, aromatic. It's all things in Chinese food, right? Upstairs is the Baldwin Sons Trading Company, which I don't want to call a speakeasy because it's not, but it's a beautiful mahogany wood bar chandelier. It's almost like a cigar lounge where we do more of the bartender's choice, but once again, we encourage guests to try our menu first, and then we need to build trust with the guests to kind of do that. I can go off menu. Like prime example, I was at Core. I've been at Core for 3 nights, about 3-4 nights. The first 2 nights, I walked in there, I'm like, I don't know where any ingredients is, and their menu's big. It's like 25 drinks, something like that. So I'm like, you know what? I'm still a bartender. When guests come order drinks from me, I'm like, this drink is really good, but you know what? I have this drink that's very, very similar to this, but I'm working on. I would love for you to try and make it for you. As soon as I tell you that as a guest, you're like, yeah, sure, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Then I'll go back and I'm like, you know what? I know what I can make with these drinks, and I'm going to make them the best of my ability. That's when that bartender mentality comes into, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I'm not at my bar. So I know you were sitting at my bar that night. Like the first hour, I was kind of just digesting this, and by hour 2 or 3, like it was like repetitive, So.
Mario 问 Ran 他这酒吧里面有没有酒单嘛？他酒吧里面是有酒单的，可是他刚刚提到一个也是蛮重要的东西，也是在服务上面有酒单跟没有酒单的差别，就是例如说他前几天都在 Core Taipei 的酒吧里面，他已经4个晚上了。那其实他第一天到的时候，他完全不知道我们里面的材料啊放在哪里，所以客人当跟他点酒的时候，就算是看着酒单上面的酒好了，那 Ran 他本身自己就会为这个客人有点量身定做的感觉，就例如说，哦，这个调酒很好，那你有没有兴趣我帮你做一个比较特别的、有点变化的感觉？对，所以他说在这一方面也是有酒单，也可以做成没有酒单的方式。对，
刚刚讲这几个不同的餐厅也好，酒吧也好，其实你自己在那边同时营运这些不同的店，你要怎么样去调试你自己的角色呢？
How do you change yourself mentally in terms of when you work at different bars or different?
So it's kind of interesting. I'm more cocktail focused, as in all my bars I've worked at has been using a jigger to measure, proper stirring. When I came, honestly, I've never met a bar like Core before. It is so cool. It's one of the coolest bars I've been to because from 9 to 12 o'clock, you get all these people want cocktails. And then from 12 to 4 is like a totally different animal. You still have these cocktail people ordering there, then you have all of these people that really want to have a good time listening to great music. So within one night, I'm getting orders from Manhattan, Sazeracs, Old Fashions, Negronis, to Red Bull Vodkas, to B52s, and to Long Island iced teas. So having that dynamic where these two groups of drinkers can party and hang out together in one space, have a good time, but get what they want. That was incredible for me to notice because I've never experienced that. But more importantly, for me to actually, I haven't made a B52 in 5 years. I haven't made a Red Bull vodka in 5 years. But you know what? I literally had to step back. I'm like, oh my God, B52. How do I make that again? You know what I mean? But it was so humbling because you appreciate that style of bartending because it's high volume bartending, but at the same time, it's done with so much quality and it's done with so much care. Everywhere you go, it's from 12 to 4, I kind of lose a jigger a little bit where I kind of, do a little more free pouring. I've never been a great free pourer, I'll admit that, I'll admit that on radio, obviously. I still have weaknesses that I can get better at as a bartender. And, I think that working at Core, I've learned more than I have at a lot of cocktail bars because I can do cocktail bars, I can do fancy cocktails all day, but learning that dynamic from 12 to 4, it was very humbling.
所以 Ran 刚刚提到说他在不一样的酒吧的时候呢，怎么样调试怎么心里面的这个感觉。那他刚刚提到说，举例他在 Core Taipei 的时候，第一次感觉到从9点到12点是一个做很 fine cocktail， 也是比较精致的 cocktail 的时间。可是呢，一到12点之后呢，变成一个是非常热闹、非常多人的这个气氛，所以他在9点到12点的时候呢，可能是大家会点一些比较复杂的调酒啊 ，very fine cocktails, for example,
Manhattan,
Negronis, yeah, really elevated, elegant cocktails.
然后到12点之后呢，就开始因为是变成比较热闹的气氛。所以大家会开始点一些 shot， 譬如说 B52。那刚刚提到蛮有趣的，就是他其实5年没有做过 B52 了，因为他都是做一些比较特别的调酒。对他来讲，他就是有一个蛮特别的体验，他甚至要回到他最初的这个心灵，会去想到说，哇，B52 是怎么做啊？我做了这么多调酒，可是最基本的 B52 可能有点忘记怎么做了。所以对他来讲，他是第一次体验到这种感受，他觉得这个非常有趣。那心里面调试也是在这段短短的这个3小时，就要从做这个非常精致 cocktail 到这种 high volume 非常大量的这种比较是 shot 啊，这种比较 Red Bull vodka 这一类的这个调酒，对他来讲是非常有趣的。
Yeah， 我要换一下问题，就是去过这么多国家，30几个国家，那有没有哪一些地方是你想要在那边开酒吧的
？Out of the 30 plus countries that you've been to, is there any country that you want to go there and open a bar?
You mean besides Taipei? No.
Good answer.
It's kind of funny because every country has its own challenges.
Yeah.
Every country has its own demographics, and every country has its own palate. So, I would love to open a bar, obviously, everywhere. But at the same time, I have language barriers.
Yeah.
There's cultural barriers that I just don't understand. I feel there's two roads I can take. One where I'm comfortable and I can do anything I want in a grade A city, or I can go to a third tier city or a city that's not as developed, and I can actually be an influencer there. I can educate, I can train, I can build a culture where we're making bartenders are better and better and better and better. So I'm always defining, I'm like, where can I be not just the most accessible, but have a bigger influence on the community to make the cocktail scene better. So instead of me looking at where I would like to open a location, I always think about the effects of me being there, because that means more to me than just a location.
对 Ran 刚开始的时候就说，除了台北之外，当然是没有啊，当然就是台北啊。可是他后来慢慢讲深入一点，他提到说，对他来讲，他会去选择他是要在第一线城市呢，还是要去稍微比较还没有开发那么多的城市来做调酒这件事，对他来讲是非常不一样的意义。因为第一线城市他可能只是去那边让他自己有名而已，可是在没有发展那么蓬勃的城市的话，他可以在这里把这个 cocktail scene 把它慢慢的经营起来，改变那边的人那边的文化对 cocktail 的这个概念。如果没有第一线城市的话，他可以做出的比较理想的东西。所以对他来讲，并不是说去哪一个城市，而是他想要做什么事情，他就去什么地方。
那有特别现在经过这些城市的时候，很有感觉，就很想要。
Is there any city that you've been to so far that you think would be really, really fun to have a bar in?
I love Spain. I've been to Madrid 4 times in the past like 2-3 years, and it's been incredible. I love the lifestyle where, it's more casual, where, bars don't open till bars in the culture, the eating culture, they don't start going out till 9 o'clock, they go till 6, you know what I mean? At the same time, I've been to Shanghai too, and it's such a great party city, you know what I mean? Like there's so many dynamics on where I would like to go and where I'd like to be, but obviously US has always been, my ground for bars. I've consulted, I've worked in many bars, but I've never actually fully been rooted there where I can be like, wow, like I'm a part of this culture now, you know what I mean? So, but if I had to pick a couple places, obviously Taipei, Spain, which is in Madrid for sure, and even Korea. Korea is incredible. South Korea, obviously. But I was in Korea, and the cocktail culture there is still developing, but the passion behind these Korean bartenders were so raw, so real. Like, I noticed that in Taipei. The Asian bartending community, is so different from the American bartending. They're so disciplined where they're like, oh my God, I need to do this. When I get off work, they're going to go read books and they're going to continue to study, you know what I mean? Versus in America, it's not like that. Once we're off, we're drinking or we're hanging out, So the discipline and the education, I think, and the approach to it is very different. And, another thing I kind of want to talk about is, what I've noticed from traveling is with service, America is a tipping culture versus Asia sometimes isn't a tipping culture. So there's a lot of motivation factors between this and that, and even cocktail competitions. I've actually realized this, a cocktail competition, when I won Bacardi Legacy and Bombay Sapphire in the U.S., it was great. I got a ton of exposure. I did all that. But it elevated my status, but, we got our business better. But in Asia, if you win a cocktail competition, that's so much different. You're elevated to a point where you can demand so much more, you can get more out of it. So I think that's why the Asian bartenders put so much work and so much knowledge and so much passion behind it, because the ripple effect of winning a cocktail competition or being that influencer it's change of life. Does it make sense?
Yeah. 所以他刚刚提到说，他最喜欢的国家能让他去开 bar， 他觉得非常非常好玩的是台北，当然是第一个，再来是西班牙。然后再来是提到还有说上海或是南韩，他都非常喜欢。那他后来又提到了说，其实亚洲的 bartender 跟西方的 bartender 的文化跟习惯或者学习上面是非常不一样的。第一个是像他们在美国 bartender 上班就是上班嘛，那下班就是跟朋友去喝酒了。可是，在亚洲，譬如说台湾或者是南韩，他看到的 bartender 其实是非常有纪律的。他一下班了之后，他第一件事可能是去念书，去看他今天学到的东西。那明天要做什么东西？然后他觉得这个是在文化上面差异非常多，他也觉得非常有兴趣的。
如果要问自己的话，就是你会想要当多久的调酒师？就这个工作，你会想做多久？
If you ask yourself, how long do you think you'll be a bartender for?
I will always be a bartender. I hope I make it to 60, but when I hopefully do become 60, I still want to bartend. You know what I mean? Will I bartend 6-7 days a week? No, but I would like to bartend when I'm, as much as I can, but to the point where you're giving enough time for your staff to grow, your team to grow. So I'll always be a bartender. I'll always be in the trenches with my team because that's where I excel the best, you know what I mean? But, once a bartender, always a bartender.
对，所以 Ran 刚刚说他希望可以做到60岁啊。对他而言的话，其实是他与他的团队，他希望是他可以做非常非常久，可以把他下面的团队都把他带起来。然后他觉得说，如果你做一次 bartender， 你就是这一生都是一个 bartender， 这是一个他的精神。
但是我问过很多 bartender 这个同样的问题。那我们在讨论的事情是，你的 career 它会开始到某一个时间点，它会变成有2条路。一个就是继续在第一线服务，就是你是在第一线 serve 客人，就是 bartender，OK。那另外一条线就是可能你会比较偏 manager 的角色，你会当 bar manager 也好，或是整个店的 manager 也好，然后你要去 take care 很多不一样的地方，然后甚至你可能要开另外一家店去照顾更多的人。所以你自己觉得你现在有这样子转换的一个
So I do both. My role is I like to bartend 1 shift a week. Reason why is because it's like an athlete. When you go to the gym, right? Like you want to make sure you're sharp, your mechanics are good, but not just that. You can physically actually work a full shift, shaking, stirring. Because as you get older, like my body hurts after a while of bartending, like for 5-6 days straight. Like people don't realize how physical bartending is. It's like using your full body, you're using your mental ability, but not just that. You're constantly using your eyes to look to see what everyone needs, right? So it's a full contact job, like it is. So as far as the way my system works, how I delegate is, especially with new programs, I like to be there hands-on. I'm a very hands-on approach guy. If something needs to get done, I'll be there to show. I'll physically lift this over here. You can ask him, like, I'm at core till 6, 7, 8 a.m. sometimes, physically not just making sure they do it the right way, but physically teaching them, like, no, this is how we do it. We do it this way because this. I'll constantly do that with them until they physically get that, lead by example. That's one thing I do. So as far as my road, do I see myself being bar manager or managing people versus being a bartender? It comes in hand. In order to be a great bartender, you need to be a great manager or a great leader. In order to be a great leader, you need to lead by example by showing them how it's done. So like I said, at my restaurant, if I'm on managing and the dishwasher cuts himself, or I'll be down there washing dishes. If my guy that's prepping, that's juicing, and he calls out sick, I don't mind rolling my sleeves and juicing. I know that sounds kind of like BS because a lot of people will say that, but ask him. Like, whatever needs to get done, we need to get done because at the end of the day, it's for the team, it's for the business, and more importantly, it's the brand you carry yourself with.
对 Ran 来说，他不是选第一条路或是第二条路。第一条路就是刚刚提到说，就是站在第一线当 bartender。第二条路就是变成是比较管理方面的。他觉得对他来讲，两件事其实是结合在一起的。你要当一个好的 bartender， 你就是要懂得管理；你要做一个好的这个管理者，你就是要当一个好的 bartender。他自己的哲学是要以身作则，所以他所有事都是亲自下去做的。例如说，他提到说，如果切菜的人不小心切到手怎么办呢？他亲自下去帮他切。如果煮饭的人不小心受伤生病了，他自己会下去煮。对，他觉得是他自己在 core 过去几天了，他也是每天都到早上6点到早上7点。他也自己本身就在吧台后面跟着大家一起工作，这个对他来讲是比选择其中一条路都还重要的。
I don't know how much they pay you for that.
I work for Taipei Food.
OK， 你心中有一个最有印象的一杯调酒吗
Do you have a most
memorable or
do you have a most memorable cocktail that you've seen?
So, as a bartender, we're always looking for that next, like, wow, that amazing cocktail. We're looking for that high. You know what I mean? It's like when we fall in love with something, we're always chasing that because that's that epiphany where you're like, wow, this is incredible. I've had a lot of drinks that have blown me away, technique, but what I've realized is honestly, simplicity wins everything. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like cocktails right now are becoming fancier and fancier and fancier, and flavors are becoming muted and muted and muted, right? When it comes down to it, it's like simple's best because you can taste all the ingredients. Actually, I was at Indulge last night, and Aki made me this pear drink he did with gin. It was like, I guess, local pear, which he carbonated. Then he had this crazy leaf he salted, he compressed, and the balance between salt, which obviously you find in salted plums and stuff in here, to the pear, which I guess is pear grows here, right? Or am I just maybe he just lied to me, but you know, but like it was so harmonious where, you know, it's that balance between salinity and, you know, sweetness and acid, and I think he used some vinegar in there too. So, you know, that's probably the most memorable drink I've had in Taipei. Granted, I've only been to, they only let me go out so much. No, I'm kidding. But you know, I've had many memorable drinks. I feel like right now the most memorable drinks have been the simpler drinks because, you know, you want to taste it. Like my style of bartending, I can do any style of bartending. I can make the crazy fanciest drinks out of 5 Michelin, well, this not 5, out of 3 Michelin star restaurant, right? Or I can go to a dive bar and pour you the best whiskey and beer, open up beer for you. You can, you know what I mean? And, you know, end of the day, like you've heard me say this before, like it's identifying your guests and what they need. Because it's like me as a guest, it's like when I come to your bar, like, you know, obviously I analyze, like I told you, how busy it is. How can I make the bartender's life easier as a consumer as well? But more importantly, I want to drink what the barman's proud of, because by me drinking that and me be like, wow, this is incredible, it's not only going to make their day, but it's going to validate why they're in this craft.
Ran 刚提到说他最喜欢的 cocktail 其实不是很复杂的 cocktail， 其实是反而比较简单的 cocktail。他刚刚提到说，他前几天去找阿 K 妈做了一杯用台湾的这种酸梅泡过盐的酸梅，还有台湾的梨子去结合的一个东西。那他觉得说，他喝这个简单的 cocktail 会去找他的一个 balance 非常平衡。然后他想要回到他刚刚之前提到的一点，就是说，其实他喝 cocktail 比较重视的是人与人之间的关系。进去这个 bar， 这个 bartender 有没有办法知道说他想要什么？他想回到这个人的元素，其实对他来讲是最重要的。
可不可以跟我们谈一谈，就是美国调酒这几年有没有什么样的变化
Is there any new trend going on in the cocktail scene in the U.S.?
So, U.S. bartending is based a lot of classics. You know, when I say classics, it's like the French mother sauces, or it's like, you know, it's like the beef noodle soup of Taipei, you know what I mean? These are the OG classics that people drink. So I think the trend right now is paying respect to classics, as in following their formulas, but adding little tweaks here and there, but it's still the same DNA, right? I think the trend right now in America, and I'm kind of seeing over the world, is also lower ABV cocktails. What that means is lower alcohol cocktails. Sometimes you don't need a glass full of whiskey to have a good time, you know what I mean? It's, I teach all my staff this, and, you know, obviously I try to teach my guests this as well in a more nonchalant way. Is if you're going to poison your body, it might as well be the best poison, you know what I mean? So, you know, you see people sometimes coming to bars ordering what they've heard is cool, or maybe they order it because it's the most expensive thing and they want to take an Instagram picture. But at the end of the day, are they going to enjoy the drink, you know? It's actually kind of funny. Like, I've been to bars where, like, people are like, oh my God, I've never had a Long Island iced tea before, but I heard it gets you really messed up. And I'm like, oh yeah, I should totally order one. This bartender makes a great one. And they end up ordering, and they'll take like this sip, and they'll be like, and they'll put it down, they'll never finish it, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think the trend in cocktails right now, at least in the U.S., is, once again, lower ABV cocktails, recession-proof, where people can actually have a good time. Also, what's really cool right now, I think, is as consumers becoming more educated, they need to understand what to drink, when to drink, and how they're drinking. So let's say before you eat, right, you want something more aperitif-based, more lighter, something that can kind of develop your appetite, you know, versus when you're eating, sometimes I'll do a glass of wine or something, you know, then towards the end of the night, I'll have usually some Amaro or some Cynar, or, you know, even like a Manhattan or something to help you kind of digest a little bit. So just like when you're ordering food, appetizers, entrees, soup, or dessert, it's the same thing with cocktails, you know? I'm not going to order like a B-52 for my appetizer, you know? I mean, that's just too heavy. But you know, that's the culture where I think people need to understand, thinking about drinking like food. And I think that's the evolution of where it's going to be.
所以Ran 提到说，现在美国最近 cocktail 里面流行的就是说，第一个是把 classic 的 cocktail 比较传统的 cocktail做非常微妙的一些调整，所以现在美国第一个流行就是把以前传统的 cocktail， 然后做些的调整来 pay respect to the classics， 对传统的调酒的致敬。然后第二个他其实看到的是酒精浓度没有那么高的调酒，在全世界来讲，他说他看到这是一个趋势。那可能传统上，譬如说他说有一些客人走进来说他想要点一个 Long Island Ice Tea， 他说听到喝一杯这个就会醉了。可是当他做这个现在比较流行的是比较低酒精的这个 Long Island 的时候，大家喝到就觉得说，怎么是这样子？然后第三个呢，他说其实现在喝调酒跟吃饭其实是有点类似的，就是说在什么情况下是点什么菜。例如说你点菜的时候，可能有分 appetizer 啊，分主菜啊，分甜点啊。那其实喝调酒上面也是这样子的，你要在什么时间喝什么样的调酒。其实是大家慢慢会重视的。大家现在喝调酒已经不是说出去就是喝一杯 shot 还是什么，其实是要看时机去点什么样的调酒，这是很重要的趋势。
如果你去一个 bar 的时候，你第一个会观察什么东西
What do I notice at first?
Yeah.
First thing I go to any establishment, I notice how they greet me. Hey, how's it going? Or like, go sit there. You know what I mean? It's like granted, there's different styles of bars. You know what I mean? Like, usually the first approach when I sit down at a bar, are they going to pour me a glass of water? Like, are they going to bring a menu? Hey, how's it going? Like I said, one thing I teach all my staff to do is, is this your first time here? You want to know the guests a little bit. Know a little bit about them to make it personal. So that's the first thing I always look for, the meet and greet. Granted, you go to a lot of bars too. I'm very fortunate that I'll go to a lot of bars and people will either recognize me or they'll become super friendly with me just by talking to me, be like, oh, cool, you're a bartender from Boston, blah, blah. And then suddenly everyone's demeanor changes. Oh, try this, you know what I mean? So I have a really skewed perception of bar because, it's our industry, you know what I mean? But what I look for most importantly in bars where I'm in like that is not how they treat me, because I know most of the time everyone treats me very well. But how they treat other guests too, you know what I mean? Because a lot of times you've been to bars with your friends that your friends work in, and they treat you like gold, right? Yeah. And then they suddenly forget about every other guest. So that's very important to me.
所以他进酒吧第一件观察的事，其实也是刚刚提到服务这一部分，他觉得服务非常重要。例如说，因为他本身也是个 bartender， 所以他去平常的 bar， 大家都认识他了。所以大家都会把他当作是一个就是 VVIP 这样子，可是呢，他觉得这也不是他看的地方，他看的地方其实是他们怎么样服务所有的客人，别人的客人他也会去注意。
我之前有一本书，然后我很喜欢，叫 Tinder Bar。Do you know the book Tinder Bar?
Is that a Tinder app or?
No, not Tinder Bar.
Tinder Bar.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. 然后他是讲一个记者。然后，但他小时候就从小就是在一间 bar 长大，就是很小的时候。然后等到他开始可以喝酒的时候，他就立刻在那个 bar 就是混很久这样。但基本上它是一个真实的故事啦。就是你有没有听过类似？就是因为你在 bar 里面服务的时候，你就会听过很多客人的故事。然后有没有什么特别印象深刻的客人的故事
？Mario has a favorite book, and it's called The Tender Bar. So it's basically about a kid who really liked the cocktails, so he started drinking as soon as he turned
legal
the drinking age. So Mario wanted to ask you if you heard any like crazy stories from your friends, from the customers at the bar.
So first off, bartenders, we're psychologists, we're sometimes financial advisors, and we're sometimes like divorce lawyers for all patrons, because we hear everything, right? I feel like as bartenders, there's that thing where doctors do with patients, it's only strictly confidential, where we need to go by. But I've seen some really crazy stuff bartending. I mean, from obviously some amazing stories to people proposing at my bar, to me helping them like plant the ring, to even people like getting caught cheating or like stuff like that. So I almost want to plead the fifth on this stuff. But I've seen some stuff where people has fallen in love with like the drinks we've made, or I've seen people fall in love with drinks at other bars. Everyone has favorite bartenders, and they are influencers that kind of change our craft. They shape the way people think about what cocktails can be, and they push the boundaries. So, I think for bartenders right now, like, you guys need to lead the example. You need to show the way, but most importantly, you guys represent not just yourself, but you represent all of us.
Right. 所以 Ran 提到说，其实当 bartender 其实跟做心理医生蛮类似的，或者是跟律师，因为其实他们做 bartender 就是每天都听到非常夸张的事情，例如说有离婚的，然后有要叫他们把戒指藏在什么地方要求婚的，这些各式各样疯狂的事情他都听过，因为大家喝了酒就是什么事情都跟你讲。所以他说他非常想要用那个法律第5条，就是不要讲这些东西，因为这是他客人的隐私。总之呢，因为他当 bartender 嘛，他所有这些疯狂的事情都听到了，所以这是他听过非常多疯狂的事情啦，只是他可能不那么方便跟大家讲所有的故事。
你可以匿名，就把那个细节换一换。
Can you just not say the name and tell the story?
Or you guys change some details,
So are you looking for an embarrassing story, a funny story, or
anything you think is interesting?
Interesting story. Let's see. Oh, all right. So this one time, so thank God, one of my friends was visiting me at my bar, right? And we had this party in the dining room. I'm not going to say their name or if it's a he or she. I'm just going to put person X, right?
Okay.
So at our bar, I mean, we get booked out in advance. We normally, before we open, we know how many covers we're doing. We know how many guests are coming in. We know their names or have they been here before, all these things. We try to find as much out before the guest arrives. Upstairs is very reservation focused. So one time we had this guest come in and they wanted to sit upstairs, but they didn't make a reservation or they didn't call. And I'm like, I do apologize. We don't have anything. And she's like, but it's my birthday. Like, see, I have one of those birthday crowns on. I'm like, happy birthday. Let me get you, a little champagne on me. I love to have you a good time. Can we fit you in the dining room or you guys hang out? If I do have an availability, I will, bring you guys in. And they're like, okay, well, how many people do you have? Like, oh, we have 10. I'm like, okay, 10 people. Well, it looks like we can probably get you in about 3-4 hours. Like, if you guys want to come back or if you guys want to have some dinner, we'll figure it out. So no, we'll have some dinner. So they go into the dining room and like every half an hour, she or one of her friends come in. Hey, do you guys have availability? Hey, do you have availability? I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I spoke to you half an hour ago. Like, I don't think we'll have available for you till like, let's say 11 o'clock, right? And they'll be like, okay. So after she started drinking a little more and more, or he started drinking a little more and more, it got to the point where like they got more and more frustrated, more and more angry because they wanted to be upstairs at the Baldwin Sons Trading Company. So I had one of my friends come in who was my friends visiting me, and he was sitting on the lounge couch right in front of me while by the bar we were making drinks. And he's just minding his own business on a date, eating, having a good time. And suddenly she comes in, she's like, well, what about that seat right there? I'm like, well, ma'am, you mean the seat where my guest is sitting at right now? He's like, yeah, can't you move them over there and give me that? I'm like, ma'am, you want me to kick him out and put you in? I'm like, sir, how do you feel? I normally wouldn't do that to guests, but he's my friend, so I can put him under the bus a little bit. So I'm like, how do you feel about this? He's like, oh, wait, what? I'm like, she's trying to kick you out right now because she wants your seat. So how do you feel about this? He's like, what's going on? I'm like, ma'am, like I started saying, so you want me to kick him out to seat you in here? She's like, yes. I'm like, well, why would that be fair to him? How would you feel if I did that to you? She's like, but it's my birthday. So long story short, so we finally got them in, right? After a while, we're like, shit, like, I said that word again, I'm sorry. I'm like, man, they're here right now. Like, I don't know what to do. And anyways, they came out, and our drinks upstairs are a little more expensive, you know what I mean? Long story short, like, we try to take care of them, but at the same time, we're like, man, like, these guys are going to give us some problems, right? So they started ordering all these fancy drinks, and the drinks upstairs, they're up to US, like the big drinks are up to $100 US, right? And they ordered a bunch of them, and as soon as they get their check, they're like, what just happened? Like, our bill is like $800 US for like some drinks, and like they thought we were kind of trying to, they thought we were trying to upsell them, but realistically our prices are listed on the menu, So it's one of these situations where it's like I think they thought we were trying to screw them over a little bit, but I know end of the day it's like karma, you know what I mean? It's like treat one how you like to treat others, and don't think that, just because you're a guest, any establishment, you still need to hold that code as well of respecting my other guests as well. So that's a situation I'm in that, I've seen a lot of things. I've seen people making out in couches, and then whenever people make out, so upstairs we have the couch where I told you about my friend who tried to get kicked out by this lady. So whenever we have people making out in front of people while everyone's eating dinner, I'm like, what are they doing? We switch to R. Kelly music or something very sexual. So suddenly everyone just stops and looks why are they making lovemaking music? And suddenly these two guys are making out. They just or ladies or whatever. Then they just look up. They're like, what's going on? And I'm like, and everyone starts clapping.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So as a bartender, I've seen it all, but it's what makes every experience unique. Every day I go behind a bar, you see different things, and it's what makes I think my job very special. And I'm very fortunate because that's a human aspect of it. And without it, I think it'd be very hard.
Mm-hmm. All right. 好，
And I don't know how you're gonna translate because that was
I can do it.
That was
I will try at least. 所以他刚刚提到说有一天呢，有一群人走进来，然后可能是一个男的，可能是一个女的，然后呢，他想要就是他们楼上的位置，他们楼上通常是留给比较 VIP 的客人，或是你要先预定的。可是呢，那个人就走进来，戴了一个生日的帽子，还有说，可是今天我生日欸。那 Ran 当然是就说哦，生日快乐，那先给你一瓶香槟让你喝。可是呢，这个之后他们每个10分钟就过来问一次，所以现在我们可以上去了，现在可以上去了吗？然后问了很久之后呢，刚好他看到 Ran 的朋友坐在那边，他就想要把他踢出去，所以呢，他就跟 Ran 说：“你可以把那客人赶出去吗？让我做啊。”然后 Ran 就是直接问他朋友说：“如果他叫你出去，你这样可以吗？你会有什么感觉？”对，所以他们这一群人呢，就这样子闹了非常久，到后来他们就越喝越醉了嘛。然后他们账单来的时候，他们看到是$800多，他们就有点吓醒了。可是呢，实际上他们都是从他们菜单上面点的，那这些价钱在菜单上面。所以 Ran 刚刚就说这个是有点像报应的感觉。你怎么可以走进别人的 bar， 然后把人家客人赶走，然后这边闹来闹去的，然后到时候你自己账单看到自己傻眼，这是不是你自己活该？另外第二个故事他提到的也蛮有趣的，就是说他们楼上有一个沙发区嘛，那大家喝完酒有时候比较气愤情绪来了，就跟旁边的人就开始亲起来了。他们这个 bar 有一个蛮有趣的解决方法，就是说他们当看到有人在这个 make out 在亲来亲去的时候呢，他们就会换了音乐，他们音乐就换成非常性感的这种音乐。所以所有客人听到这音乐的时候呢，大家就会转过头往那沙发去看，怎么音乐变换这样子啦？然后客人听到这音乐转过头之后呢，看到大家在看到这两个人在亲密的时候，就开始拍手，对，所以这个就是他们解决的办法，就是蛮聪明也蛮有趣的这样。
But I think the whole thing is to have fun with guests. It's we're not here to make fun of guests. We're not having anything, but it's our cheeky way of saying, I don't care if people make out, but end of the day, you're sitting here, you're having a nice dinner with your friends, and there's just dinner and a show right there,
所以Ran 说他这样做并不是要让客人尴尬还是怎么样，只是跟大家就是好玩而已啦。就是他说客人听到这音乐转过头，然后在 make out 的人也不会说可能被丢出去还是怎么样，反正是一个用有趣的方式来化解这个事情。Yeah.
You told a nice story for us, so I will exchange for your story back. I try to use the English, so we don't need to translate. So I used to open a cafe.
Yeah.
Okay. And kind of similar situation that the couple guests over there, and they have a lot of drink. Basically, one person have a lot of drink. Okay. And back to that time, we don't serve whiskey, but we have a bottle of nice whiskey. We
pour for guests.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't really know that guest. This is the first time he came, and he or she came to ask, can I have one? We said, oh yeah, sure, I have one. And next time, that 10 minutes back, she came back and said, can I have another one? I will pay. Okay, you will pay. So we just pour you another glass of whiskey. So for the first time, she came and she asked, can you have a double? Yeah, I will pay you double. Okay. So okay, sure. So we pour her like
half a bottle per.
Yeah, like 6 or 7 glasses, and And at the end of the day, they got a check, and she said, "Oh, I will take care. I will take the bill." And she came to a bar and say, "We need a check." So we give them the bill, and she said, "Can we take credit card?" We say, "No, we only take cash." And she take a look at the bill, and she say, "Can you come in, give me some discount?" We say, "No, sorry. We really contribute very, very cheap, but we can offer you another discount."
Yeah.
So she came to look at the bill. She kind of a little bit drunk. She said, "Really? Can you give me a discount?" Just keep saying that, okay? So back to like 5 or 10 minutes, just hang around in the bar, and I go to her friends, and say, "Do you need to check your friend? She didn't look very good." And her friend say, "What situation? Do you upsell us or give more expensive bill?" And we try to explain to their friends. So no, it's your friend asked me to pour the whiskey, and we keep it very cheap. We only charge you like maybe $5 or $6 US. So it's pretty cheap. And she said, "Oh, okay, she might be a little drunk, so I will give you $1,000, and you just come here, say that you give him some discount." Okay, so, yeah, sure. So back to that time on the bar, and she keeps saying that, "Can you give me some discount? Give me some discount." And after the final, and she said, "I won't pay that." She just dropped the bill, and we just, why do you do that? You know? And after that, I take the money from her friends, and I just show it to my partner and say, "Hey, I got money, and you can give her some discount." So my partner said to the guy, said, "Okay, we'll give you 1,000 discount."
Did she pay?
She said, "How do you count that? I want to see the bill." My partner said, "You just threw it."
Yeah.
Yeah. Why you say that? You just threw it. And I just said, "Okay, I don't care. How did you count it?" Okay. So finally, she paid. Everybody. I don't say everybody happy, but at least they went off.
Yeah.
Our cafe.
They didn't break her.
No. Yeah. And the funny thing is, she came back next day, in the afternoon, because we are a cafe. So come afternoon and drink coffee with another friend, and I ran in the cafe and said, "Wow, she came again." And she asked me to come back. I said, "Hi, how are you?" And I said, "Everything going?" And she said, "Oh, did I have a really drunk last day?" I said, "Yeah, a little bit." And I said, I told you that you should serve whiskey. See, am I right? I don't know how to say that, you know. She's drunk, and she's do a lot of things to us last night, and she come to the next day and she said, "Yeah, am I right? Am I doing very, very good to you guys?" Yeah.
She apologized.
Yeah, no, she
Oh, she didn't.
She didn't.
She thought she was right.
Yeah, she said she's right. Yeah.
She'd be like, "All right, well, you know, like there's a cafe right down the street."
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of my experience. Like sometimes guests are always going to feel that they're right.
Yeah.
Sometimes even if they're not right.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, too, is it's like we need to be professionals about it. You know, I've had experiences where no matter what happens, you can't make a guest happy once they've already crossed that road or crossed that threshold. And end of the day, it's like we can comp as many things, or we can send out whatever, or we can just say, "Hey, this is on the house." But end of the day, then we're giving up our rights, saying, "Oh man, we admitted that we're wrong." You know what I mean? So there's a fine line of giving into the guest, but the same line is you need to stand for yourself like you did. And I give you a lot of credit for that because, you know, like end of the day too, everyone feels entitled. Yeah, you did a good job. So bravo.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's it. Yeah.
1, 2, 1, 2,
如果你喜欢我们的 Podcast， 欢迎订阅跟分享，在 iTunes 或 SoundCloud 都可以找到我们。也欢迎到马里欧陪你喝一杯的脸书粉丝团跟我们互动，最新的内容都会公布在那里。如果你有任何的意见或想法，或是有任何想要跟我们讲的话，都欢迎留言或私讯给我们。如果你对于我们的 Podcast 有任何的意见的话，也欢迎在 iTunes Podcast 上面给我们评分，或是 rating， 或是给我们任何的意见，我们都会去读。谢谢你，希望你听得开心，我们下次再见。